What crossroads have we reached? Where are we in world history and how quickly has it changed?
I think that the situation is tragic, but it gives some hope. Tragic in the sense that, you know, the left was babbling all the time about neoliberalism. We have to leave behind neoliberalism. Trump did it. Something radically new is emerging. We had, after World War II, the Bretton Woods era, early welfare state.
The rules-based order.
Then we had neoliberalism, where what the US are complaining now
Globalization.
is importing, yes.
Yeah.
But this US tremendously profited from it because most of the dollars, but that's another story. But now it reached the end because of the success of China and so on.
So we're saying that Donald Trump accelerated a change in the global order that was coming anyway.
Yeah, but you know what was the tragedy? That not only the left, but even this moderate liberal left didn't get this. For me, the sign that we are doomed was, do you remember inauguration of Biden?
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve.
It was a fake, false spectacle which implied that Trump was just an abomination, accident.
He'd gone.
Yeah, it's gone. No. Now, with the repetition, it's clear that Trump got some things more correctly than the liberal democratic left.
Because here's what is forgotten by the critics. It's a competitive choice in a democracy, and the voters were offered this change-making Trump or Joe Biden, who could not talk, walk, or ride a bicycle. Why do we criticize voters for choosing the change maker? Why are people so obsessed with criticizing the voters in a democracy?
We, the citizens of America, are now joined in a great national effort to rebuild our country and restore its promise for all of our people.
I understand voters because, again, the Democratic Party played these really upper middle class games of identity politics and all that stuff, while there was a wide popular discontent which they didn't really address.
So the people who did some of the best work for Donald Trump are the US Democrat Party.
Absolutely. Look at the debates that preceded the last election. Nothing against Kamala Harris, but you couldn't even get out of her a serious, clear statement.
Now, this is the thing, because you took a lot of fire in 2016 because you said, I imagine that voting for Trump will produce an awakening on the left. So you were criticized around the world.
I know.
You appeared to be saying, vote Donald. You appeared to be saying, vote Donald.
Yeah.
So
and are
you pleased that you've got the Donald in the White House?
No, I was very
Well, is there an awakening on the left that you wanted? Is it starting?
There was a
but
little
is it starting?
bit. Remember that so-called democratic socialism.
I don't want to talk about democratic socialism. I want to ask you, in the United States, do you see an awakening on the left?
It did happen. Socialism became, through Bernie Sanders and so on, an option. But what disappointed me was that I knew that history is on the side of Trump. My very dangerous wager was, if we let him take power now, before he fully formulated his vision, maybe people will feel what he is and turn against him.
Okay, so
but it didn't work.
No. Can we say about America, before we leave America, has it got early onset autocracy?
Yes, but you know where I am more of a pessimist? Yes, but the key point is to see that Trump is nonetheless a symptom, a reaction to the failure of the mainstream welfare state, liberal democratic
and the failure of the globalists to spread the booty. The billionaires did very well from globalization, but the American steel workers, the American car makers, they did not boom like the billionaires boomed. It was an inequity has given us...
No, and here Trump is right.
He's right.
The situation in neoliberalism was American oligarchs exploiting Chinese workers.
And American workers at the same time. They did the double, didn't they? Because they
but also many of them were unemployed and so on.
Okay.
But I think Trump's illusion is that, as it was often noted, that it's possible a kind of a return to the 50s, factories in the United States and so on. I think that that type of capitalism is over. But you know what really worries me? Now I move from Trump to the world.
We need to do that.
Yeah, that I saw here at the entrance to this house a statue of George Orwell.
You did. I met you near it.
Yeah. I don't quite trust Orwell's vision of 1984. But at one point, he was terrifyingly right. You know the geopolitical situation in 1984. 3 big superpowers, each has its sphere of influence. Oceania, United States, United Kingdom. Then you have Eurasia and you have China. This is where we are now. That's the horror today. That's why Trump and Putin, even when they don't agree, they speak the same language.
Yes.
Like the deal is you, Trump, do what you want, more or less, with Greenland, Canada. I do what I want in Ukraine, Georgia, Georgia, and so on. And I think Europe is caught in between, divided. So I am here a pessimist in the sense that Europe not only should do it, but it's condemned to become to a superpower, to act as a superpower. Even if this means, I have no illusion about China, but even if this means at least a temporary, at the trade level, pact with China.
Right, now there you are, you see, because the country that is most free to act in all of this is the UK, because there is a problem for the EU moving swiftly, as we know.
Yeah.
The UK could choose between Europe and China and the United States. Do you think it's inevitable that Keir Starmer is at a fork in the road? He's trying to play all sides, but will he have to choose?
You know, in short term, up to a certain point, you can play this game. But in the long term, you lose. You know what?
And who should he choose? What should he choose? 'Cause if he can
I think absolutely Europe and China.
But we voted to Brexit. We told Brussels, push off with your mission creep. This is a similar message to the Beltway was sent by American voters. The British voters, marginally, said we wanted to away with your big Brussels. We want more control.
But as it is clear now, the alternative to Europe is not big sovereign United Kingdom. It's United Kingdom as de facto, in some sense, a colony of the United States.
So will Donald Trump be an accelerant for bringing a new European unity that is post-EU? I'm not saying that
hope.
the EU
I'm
will,
more of a pessimist.
I'm not, do we
because
say that
I think he's already in full accordance with Putin, disuniting, splitting Europe.
Will the EU fracture? Do we know as Europeans what vision we have of our political unity? Do we know it yet? And will the EU fracture?
We don't know it yet, which is why, surprisingly for a leftist, I am in favor of militarization, arms, and so on. I don't believe in this pseudo-leftist bullshit. You have to choose either arms or butter or whatever.
Yeah, trade.
No, listen, so I will surprise you even more. I think the left needs, sorry for saying this, a leftist, not dictator, but charismatic authoritarian person. They already had it. I know that they are not the same. I'm not crazy. But look at FDR, Roosevelt. He de facto ruled not as a dictator, but he was so strong that he ignored the Congress, and with investing, especially with World War II, into arms, this didn't diminish the consumerist production. In 45, even if you take away all military production, the production of civil consumerist production was higher than ever. So if you do militarization in an intelligent way, it can help boost production. Yeah. But what Europe doesn't have is, it's not just enough to militarize. You have to have a clear political vision. You know what I really hate? I hope we'll agree. This leftist whose orgasm is, my God, 1 million people on the main square all protesting. I don't care about that. What interests me is what you call, I think in English and American, the morning after. How will actual people feel the difference 3 months later when things return to normal? And here the new left will have to be really, in a good sense, pragmatic, in the sense of not making this crazy, nationalize this, do that, but like Chinese, allow free market, but nonetheless control it, regulate it, and we have models, Singapore, China up to a point, and so on. The challenge of Europe is a very simple one. How to do this controlled market with nonetheless democracy surviving. Yeah, well, that's the big choice.
Right, but the figures that are best known to the outside the borders are from the right. Nigel Farage has got to a situation where his small number of MPs in the UK Parliament has a third of the support, or at least it has 25%.
But that's the tragedy of the United Kingdom.
Well, we're not a tragic country. We are a country with a democracy, and we have the ruling party has 25%, the old Conservatives has 25%, and the Reform Party has 25% of the support at the moment. And that proves my point, is there is no dominant figure from politics at the moment in our own country, let alone in the countries of the EU.
Nonetheless, I think that what gives me hope is this very chaos. Because this chaos, it's tragic situation, people are aware of it, and I hope that there will be enough popular dissatisfaction in Europe with Trumpian alternative to neo-globalism, and that something out of this dissatisfaction will emerge, but the left has to get rid absolutely of first of this old welfare state social democratic dream that's over, because you end up with Keir Starmer. Can I be very brutal here? And I'm not against him personally. Isn't it that the UK has today one big center-right moderate party? It's called Labour Party, and then it has some rightist marginal parties. So the first thing for the left to realize is, I'm sorry to provoke you, to quote Lenin, who said in 21, when revolution gets stuck, it's not enough to just stop and rethink situation. You have to descend back to 0 point and start to climb the mountain for a totally different direction. That's what left has to do, and I'm very open here, we don't have time to go into it. For example, enough of this postmodernism, irony, and so on. The new right took this from us. The new left should be literally neoconservative left in the sense of, yes, it's global organization, control the market, but at the same time, we should speak now for moral majority, common decency, and so on. The new right is obscene enough. That's why, for me, the mega tragedy was, you remember 6th of January, 5 years ago. My friends were crying because they said, isn't this the leftist dream? United people penetrate the seat of power. Yes, sorry, they took even this from us. So isn't the paradox in this? Compare persons like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump as a person, isn't he a pure postmodern relativist, making jokes of himself, changing position? Bernie Sanders is a common, decent, consistent man. I think it's time, it's horrible what I'm saying, for the left to stop with this subversive bullshit and so on. We are entering with this new Orwellian order. It's a new age of shamelessness. Big powers do what they want because they can. They don't even feel this hypocritical need to somehow justify it.
You have brought me near the end of our time. You've brought me to, I think, your unifying view, this new age of shamelessness.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, as a student of history, and you're a leading thinker, but I studied the history, this is the past. That's what we had before. It led to war and reorder, and the rules-based order that followed the Second World War, and the generation like my father who came out of that war, they had seen what war was, so they knew what peace was. I think what we're looking at is complacent voters. Are we not? People who took so much for granted.
Yeah.
Why should America pay for Germany's defense in 2025? Why should the Europeans pay less than the 3% of NATO? The Europeans are shown by history, are they not, to have been smug. In the new age of shamelessness were smug Europeans who wanted American voters to pay for their defense. That's what history will show the Europeans.
Absolutely. That's why I always emphasize this. Don't dismiss Trump just as a confused
And don't
idiot.
just criticize Trump.
Yeah, his points about this trade imbalance, about how Europe plays its small game by always secretly relying on the American umbrella and so on. Here,
Can we say that
Trump is right. Liberal Democrats are just, they didn't propose anything new. They just repeat the old mantra. Let's return to social democratic welfare. That will not work. The only hope is that this obvious void felt by people will give birth to something. And I'm ready to go pretty far here. This something can even be, now you have the final provocation, this something could even be a leftist Trump, when by Trump we mean somebody who acts decisively in a fast way, like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who did it ultra successfully.
we must say to you, thank you very much indeed.